By the way, you are not just God's field, but you are God's building. Kanina sabi niya, we are. So, community. And then he pointed out the emphasis, by the way, why are you splitting? Why are you dividing? Why are you in conflict? You are God's vineyard. What is expected for a vineyard is productivity. It reflects Isaiah chapter 5, where God was so displeased because he provided he made this Israel as his vineyard, and he was expecting them to produce. And yet they were barren when God evaluated them. And so God was so displeased, and now he has to uproot Israel. So Isaiah 5 is being echoed into this passage when he said not only Solomonic garden, but also God's vineyard from the perspective of Isaiah the servant. He said, Corinthian assemblies, you are God's field. Remember that. God is expecting you to produce instead of hindering one another to produce. So we're talking about the theme of productivity by using this agricultural metaphor. But immediately he switched the metaphor to an architectural metaphor. So he started with this agricultural metaphor. Hey, by the way, Corinthian church, instead of dividing, you should be one and producing. Then he moved to the architectural metaphor. By the way, you are also God's building. But the point is not about the building, the structure. He moved further in discussing this. And now we move to verse 16. He said, do you not know that you are God's temple? So earlier, the painting of the building is not yet that very clear. But for sure we understand that it's a building. The church, God's people, is a building. And there are a lot of dimensions we can observe in a building. And we have engineers or architects here. They understand what Paul is saying. But he made this very, very clear in verse 16. He said, do you not know that you are God's temple and that God's Spirit dwells in you? If anyone destroys God's temple, God will destroy him, for God's temple is holy and you are God's temple. So what we find, secondly, is this picture of essentially consecrated community. The juxtaposition of the conflation of two metaphors. Agricultural metaphor where God expects productivity, and architectural metaphor where because this is a temple, where God expects holiness. So productivity and proper way of living. And he put them together and he said, church, you should not be behaving in the way you are behaving. Because that is not appropriate. And then he elaborated, so the two metaphors, vineyard or garden, and then building, and then the main point is this temple. God dwells in you. God is in you through His Spirit. So He is your life. Why are you so defeated? If you already received your life in Christ and the Spirit. And so he began to talk about the lifestyle of the church. And this is where we could also reflect and relate. Yung naipit na verses is talking about how we serve the Lord. It's not the issue of how much you have accomplished already, but it's the issue of how did you do it. Kaya merong 6 na description. Yung 3 mananatili, yung 3 masusunog. Yung 3 kahit idaan mo sa apoy ay lalabas yung tunay na kadalisayan. Pero yung 3 masusunog at wala nang saysay. So it's the worthy service and the worthless service that is evaluated. And Paul is painting the worthy service in accordance to the church's identity as God's vineyard, who is producing, and God's temple, who is living a holy life. So it's the issue of the how and the what, or the method of our service, the way we serve the Lord, and the materials. Is it worthy or worthless? In the end, the vision of the Apostle Paul, our third point, is actually a church or a scatologically delighted community. He will provide rewards, He will bless our labor, He will allow us to produce. So it's like we are all flourishing. What a vision of a church, isn't it? If only we recognize this vision of the church, we can all flourish. Just like the original vision in the garden in Genesis 1-3. When God said, okay, humayo kayo at magpakarami. The theme of flourishing is not easily discerned from the text. We talk about cultural mandate, we talk about, tilling the ground and make it productive. But normally we don't use the theme flourishing. But the original design of the Lord for His image bearers is actually to flourish. And so remember, Corinthian assemblies, you are to produce and you're expected to live a holy life instead of, behaving in the way you have been behaving. So in the mind of Paul, Christ's community is very, very clear. It's a blueprint. It's an ongoing project, but the blueprint has been done. And that blueprint is guiding us to continue the project. Remember, mga kapatid, we are an ongoing project. We constantly go back to the blueprint para hindi mali yung design. That's the image the Apostle Paul is painting for us as a community. And so I hope this reflection will help us, and motivate us to pray properly. We cannot just go to the altar and offer our sacrifices to the Lord. It is not pleasing. So, the first part of our prayer time perhaps would be coming to the Lord in humility and evaluation and sabihin natin, unang bahagi ng ating panalangin ay panalangin ng pagsasaliksik. So shall we devote a few moments of time